favourite debaters in the social media metasphere. And he also happens to have Andrew Wilson's wife, alongside another well-known feminist who I've only just heard of, to debate feministic matters. So as it goes and as it happens, I couldn't resist this one. What I wanted to do is share my reactions to this said video alongside anyone who happens to stumble across the Corner Speak podcast in these early hours. And I thought and figured we'll watch this together. So without no further ado, let's get into it, but not before a short message from the video sponsors, who are, as happens to be, Small Debts. If you're based in the UK and anybody owes you money online, if you've been scammed or even a rent deposit, check them out and they'll be in your corner and take care of matters for you.
To get your security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now. Struggling?
So there you have it. With no further ado, let's get into this story.
Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim.
I just want to drop in a little note, precursor. I've watched Andrew Wilson debate on many an occasion on the whatever podcast. Usually he's up against OnlyFans models and, you know, people from a religious kind of standpoint and occasional feminist. Often what happens is the opposition will resort to name calling him an old man, he's ugly, he's a misogynist, etc., etc. And kind of debate in a less than fair manner. And it usually comes to the point of them saying, oh, you know, what do you know about married life? Are you even married? Which leads to him clarifying the fact that he is a married man. And then it will lead to them saying, well, we want to hear from your wife. She's probably changed to the sink, and all these kind of assumptions are made. So on some occasions, he's got his wife on the stream, and she's actually answered their questions, which I've always found very interesting. So to have both of them debating on the same panel show is a moment worth watching. Here we go.
Just pointing it out.
Is there anything you do? I mean, do you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
I don't do shit.
The piece of shit that you're married to. Yeah, he clearly doesn't respect you.
Oh,
he sits there and makes jokes about how he married you. He doesn't do shit around the house because that's why you married a wife.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
Do you know what? All lives do matter. And
thank you. And
what's controversial?
Bombshell, but the one terrible thing you found I've ever said, you completely agree with. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men.
Why in 2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided tweet.
Apologize to men again. Do it again.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is rarely out of the spotlight. That's her job, after all. And for what it's worth, she seems to be very good at it. But a behind-the-scenes photograph posted by a colleague for Mother's Day in America has divided opinion, even among a generally appreciative MAGA base. 16 million people saw this candid snap of Leavitt in the White House, seemingly holding a baby son in one arm while, quotes, owning the libs, close quotes, with the other. A lot of those people applauded her as a super mom. Many others criticised her for aping conservative family values while actually promoting a feminist myth about women who can have it all. That might seem a bit harsh, but the MAGA movement she's part of has made big inroads in popular culture by promoting the return of traditional gender roles. Here she is talking about masculinity.
Yes, this is something I've heard a lot about, especially on the dating podcasts, this conservative female role and those who profess to be living up to these same said ideals, which in some circumstances you might have noticed in these debates, you'll get a cherry picking thing going on where you'll have the females whose stance is, yeah, I'm very feminine, very submissive, if the man in question is, meets my standards, or I'm at times submissive if I deem the man worthy of my submissiveness. All of these sort of what do you call it when you only something if you're gaining something in return. So yeah, that doesn't really play well with me.
Back in 2023.
Like, Russell, I'm so rich. He's like, you are? I was like, yes. I was like, you're rich. What do I do with all this money?
In my opinion, he's the best marketer who ever lived.
The wisdom and the experience that comes out of him.
Excuse me.
Man is
So
someone who stands up for his family, provides for those that he loves, and contributes to his community. A great example, helping an elderly woman with her groceries, helping a neighbor or a friend, putting others before yourself. That's the definition of a man. I'm proud to have so many strong men in my life, 2 older brothers, a great father. We love men, we need men, and as women, Jen, we should not be afraid to say.
See, it's strange where it gets narrowed down to such simplistic tropes or examples of what defines a man. Helping an elderly woman across the road, emptying the trash. Is that all it takes to fall into the category of being a man? Unusual, to say the least.
Well, there's undeniably been a huge backlash to the whole era of demoralising all men as miniature Harvey Weinsteins with ambitions that are wickedly patriarchal. Coincidentally, you can read about how that's going on in my upcoming new book, Woke is Dead. Has there ever been a better time for a book called Woke is Dead? But where does the renaissance of masculine men leave the women who thought it was a very good idea? Andrew Wilson was extolling the virtues of a more limited female role in a previous debate on Uncensored when a shocked Emily Austin said this.
Are you married?
Yeah, I'm married. How do you make married with many children?
Is your
How
wife
about
happy?
You married?
They always try to catch him out on this one. Are you married? And then he clarifies things for them.
With children? Oh, she's ecstatic.
No, I'm 23. I'm a boss lady girl, which seems to be driving you crazy.
Yeah.
Working, making money,
I'm just pointing
waiting
out
for the right guy to...
Please, drop a note in the comments. Explain to me, what is this boss lady phenomenon? And if you can go one step further, describe, give me the definition. What is a boss lady in 2025?
The only thing you have no arguments. You just try to assault me personally.
Well, Andrew Wilson's apparently ecstatic wife, Rachel, got in touch on X and told me she'd like to participate in our next debate. And so she will. She'll be joining us alongside an all-new panel of boss lady girls. Joining me now is the host of Andrew Wilson, Andrew's wife and author of Occult Feminism, The Secret History of Women's Liberation, Rachel Wilson, Emily Wilson, no relation, from Emily Saves America, and the feminist writer and author of I Don't, The Case Against Marriage, Clementine Ford. So welcome to all of you. Andrew, great to have you back on Uncensored. Are you remotely apprehensive about unleashing Mrs. Wilson on the world like this?
No, but she is the only Wilson on the panel that I claim. I'm just
Mr. Wilson.
Everyone seems to be either called Wilson or Emily in this debate, in this two-header. Rachel, welcome to Uncensored. You reached out to me on X and very boldly said, if you want to debate this properly, get me on. You're here. How are you feeling about this?
Good maneuver.
Well, thank you for having me, Piers, and thank you, Andrew, for unchaining me from the stove just long enough to appear today. I got a day pass from the patriarchy.
Patriarchy is benevolent.
It's so true. Yeah. So I'm very happy to be here. People love to attack my husband via me. I'm like the favorite way to do that. So I thought, why not come on and talk to people myself?
So look, Rachel, let's just cut to the quick. A lot of Andrew's critics, not me, a lot of his critics say that he's an obvious, blatant misogynist. He thinks all women should be, kept at home, working away on the stove, the housework, whatever it may be, and know their place in life. You are actually married to him. You've been subject to mockery inadvertently through the last debate we had about this, for having to endure being his wife. What is it like being married to Andrew Wilson?
And he's also an open, Christian, somebody who adheres to that particular spiritual faith, which adds extra dimensions to these debates and arguments, particularly when he comes across other Christians who don't seem to follow the supposed teachings on a word-to-word basis, and kind of cherry picks things that fit into their lives, as you may see in this argument.
Well, it's pretty awesome. I mean, he's hilarious. He's a really smart guy. He's very charming. And most of all, he's a great dad and a great husband. And I share his worldview, so I would agree. In fact, I would say I would probably be the more bitter misogynist out of the two of us. If you really had to pick one, it would probably be me. So
really, why do you say that?
I just think that feminism has absolutely destroyed so much of what I hold dear in life, and it's held me back more than it's helped me. It's one of the since I started looking into the history and investigating it for myself. And I think it's just created a world where we now have a two-income economy, and for women like me who do want to prioritize motherhood, it makes it extremely hard. It just makes it financially difficult. I face tons of social pressure. Had my first daughter at 20, wanted to stay home. Everyone around me, even the so-called Christian conservative women, told me it was a terrible idea. You can't do that. You have to bring the baby to daycare. You're going to put yourself at risk. Your husband's going to hurt you. You're going to be abused if you don't have your own money and your own career. And I think it's backwards. I think it's the most inefficient, stupid thing we've ever come up with. And that in the future, people will look back at the feminist experiment as a goofy time in history where we tried this wild experiment that failed miserably, and thank God it's over.
Wow. Okay. Well, Clementine Ford, I'm sure that you agree with every word of that, don't
you? Firstly, I'm very glad that you're happily married. It's great. A lot of women are not happily married, and they find it very difficult to leave marriages, particularly because of the financial strain. So good for you. I do think that your historical understanding of feminism is extremely skewed.
What about men whose wives earn more than them? Do those wives find it extremely hard to leave?
The idea that somehow we have only created a two-income household because feminism has tried to destroy the world is historically inaccurate, in large part. Well, firstly, you're also talking about feminism from your very, and when I say limited, I'm not trying to insult you, but the limited perspective of feminism in America and the understanding of the economy in America. It's not taking into account the global reality of the fact that women have always worked, women still continue to work. Women, for the most part, produce the majority of the world's underpaid, if drastically underpaid labor. When you talk about a two-income household being somehow instituted by feminism, you're failing to take into account that even in America,
I'm sure she meant to say infiltrated, not instituted.
Kind of the glamorization of this golden age of marriage in the 1950s to the early 1960s, which the marriage historian Stephanie Coots calls the long decade. This coincided with an increase in women in the workplace. So it's not as if there was this golden age where women where married women, weren't working. For a lot of that, actually, the labor that is required to support the middle class has always been relied on for.
So once again, if you happen to stumble upon the Corner Speak podcast on this live, and you've got an opinion or you're enjoying watching this story, jump into the comments while we're doing this in real time, or message me, DM me, send me your email address, and I'll bring you straight into the live, as I can have up to 3 or 4 people on this YOLO live stream. Don't be shy, give it a try.
Poor and disenfranchised women, largely in America, black women.
All right. Look.
For a start.
I don't want to.
Let me just finish.
Well, we all have to speed things up a little bit.
And the economy,
Please do.
the downturn in the economy, the boom that happened after the Second World War was unsustainable. It was a wonderful time between around 1940 to 1974, white working class men in particular.
No disrespect intended. Solely, this is a story that can take days to be told.
And then it began to
but I have a question for you.
One of the reasons why women had to go into the workforce was because they had to help support their families.
Okay, I have a question for you, Clementine. It's a very simple question, but I think it'll be an interesting question to ask you. What is a woman?
I'm not going down the path of debating trans women with you.
I didn't mention trans women. I asked you what a woman is.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Later, one eternity later.
Because this is your tactic. This is what you do. What is a woman? I'll tell
It's
you what a woman is.
shouldn't be controversial.
I'll tell you what a woman is. A woman is someone who has at least at one point in her life felt scared of a man.
Sorry?
So
but you guys never want to talk about that.
Wait, hang on.
You guys never want to talk about that.
So
A woman
who's ever felt afraid of another man is a woman
who at one point in their life has felt afraid of a man. That's the definition of a woman.
No.
What are you
That's
talking
not what I'm saying.
You know, this is exactly why you're wearing that shirt that says repeal. You should put the...
Right. It's how these debates get a little bit funny. She made a clear statement, and then seconds later, when confronted, turns around and says, no, that's not what I'm actually saying. But that's what you said.
19th under it. It's unbelievable. What are you talking about? A woman, anybody who has ever at one point been afraid of a man, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Do you have an actual argument here?
Would you let me finish speaking? Or do you
how long is it going to take for you to finish?
Trigger.
How long is it going to take for you to finish?
Yes, do you really just invite people on your show to be interrupted like this?
Well, Clementine, look, with all due respect, we did do a bit of research into what you said about me in the past, so I think I'm entitled to give you...
So you already know what I think about that question, because I've written about you asking that question.
Yes, you have. In fact, you said, like all of the
So why
big...
would you ask it again when you know what my answer to that is?
I'm just to enlighten the audience who have no idea what you're talking about.
Because it's a debate, and not everyone in the audience know exactly what she said about Master Piers Morgan.
Or me, like all of the bigots, that's me apparently, currently jumping on the transphobic shuttle to Ding Dong Station. Morgan wants you to believe this is about fairness and equality, specifically fairness and equality in women's sports. That was exactly what it was about. And the problem is, Clementine, with all due respect to you, the reality is...
I doubt it. I doubt it's coming with due respect.
I'll treat you with perfect respect, but your inability to just simply state what a woman actually is, particularly given 2 weeks ago in the UK, the Supreme Court made it very clear that a woman is a biological female. That's it. It's a scientific fact. The fact that you can't answer that is part of the problem.
I'd like to know... The thing is that I would like to know why you...
We had one person significantly change their telomere length within 4 days.
You, in particular, are so obsessed with this definition of what a woman is. Firstly, how does it impact you in any way? Secondly,
I have a 13-year-old daughter.
As a woman,
I have a 13-year-old daughter. And if my 13-year-old daughter decides she wants to compare... Hang on. You ask me a question. You ask me a question. I'm going to answer you. If you don't want an answer, don't ask me a question. Here's my answer to your question. I have a 13-year-old...
You asked me. You won't let me
answer. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I have 7 nieces, right? And some of them are very...
You're a real expert then.
So if I may answer your question... Some of them are very good at sport, right? The idea that they would one day have their dream of potentially an Olympic place or a Team GB place, whatever it may be, a world championship place, taken from them by a biological male, I think is completely outrageous. And by the way, so does most of the world now, which is why there's been a reversing, screeching U-turn on this particular subject. But I come back to my question to you. Your inability to say what a woman is, And yet here you are lecturing women on how they should behave as women. It's completely perverse.
I think that reducing women specifically to your biological deciding of what you think a woman is.
It's called science. It's their chromosomes. You have different chromosomes to me. It's not me saying that. I'm not writing.
I'm sure you're not the first.
The science.
I'm not the first person. I'm sure I'm not the first person to tell you about intersex people. So how do you?
I'm not talking about intersex people.
No. This is all wrong anyway. The intersex is not a third sex. It's not a third sex. That's ridiculous. There is no third sex. There's two sexes, male, female, categorized scientifically. Intersex is not a third sex. Anybody can look that up in 5 seconds. Total lie. How did you not know that, by the way? How did you not know intersex is not a third sex?
I didn't say that intersex was a third
You did.
Sex. But
yeah,
intersex
that's exactly
people
what the implication
exist,
was.
And intersex people have people
what?
can have a mixture of chromosomes. So if you
are you saying they're a third sex
world,
or aren't you?
If you present to the world as
if they're not a third sex, then you have no argument here. Do you understand that? If what he's saying is this is what is objective.
This is trans women.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I don't need. Why are you so obsessed with defining trans women? For a start.
Yeah.
No, everyone has interrupted me. Let me speak for a moment.
You just asked a question.
Let me speak for a
moment.
moment.
Can't keep asking questions, Clementine, and then refusing to allow people to answer. If you don't want an answer, don't ask a question. The truth about the problem is feminists in particular, I've noticed, feminists have latched on over the last few years to this idea that if anybody raised any concerns about the way the trans lobby was trying to make things unequal, unfair and unsafe for actual women, then they were immediately transphobic. I kept saying, I want trans people to have the exact same rights to fairness, equality and safety as me or you. However, what was happening was women's rights were being eroded, so that things were not fair, they weren't equal, and they weren't safe. And we saw absolute parodies of this in the Olympics, in the boxing ring, where people who have been banned from the World Championships because they apparently reported positive for male chromosomes were getting in the ring and beating women up in the ring. And so a woman's going to die if this was allowed to carry on. So now people have stopped it. Now sporting bodies around the world have stopped it. But you, Clementine, I say this respectfully, are still flying the flag for this bullshit. And you can't even say what a woman is. And I just find the fact that you want to lecture women like Rachel on how they should be as a woman is completely perverse, given you don't even know or don't want to say what an actual woman is.
I haven't said anything to Rachel. I've never met Rachel before in my life until today.
Well, you responded to responded to what she said about the role of a woman.
I wasn't lecturing her. I wasn't lecturing her.
Well, it sounded like you were lecturing to me. Let me bring in Emily. Let me bring in Emily. He's been waiting.
I was actually telling her about the historical reality of economics in the US.
Let me bring in Emily.
But you wanted to divert it to talk about trans women because that's clearly
No, you banged on about trans women. I just said to you, if you don't know what a woman is, we've got a problem.
You asked the question, she's wrong.
No, I just...
She's wrong about the economic history. She's the one looking at it through an economic prism that's extremely narrow. She's using feminist standpoint theory to try to tell us what the history of economics is. Yeah. She can't explain to us why.
And this is what I like about Andrew Wilson and Rachel, is they're very knowledgeable. They've studied up a lot of these subjects that they challenge people on, and they tend to talk from a factual basis. This is what trips up the opposition, usually.
Human history and all of
Let her finish, lady. You talk plenty, lady.
Why through all of Western history, we were able to raise a family, like a janitor could raise a family with 4 children on his income up until 1970. And what happened in 1970? We pushed women into the workforce in huge numbers, and we practically doubled the workforce overnight by pushing mothers and women into the workforce. This happened right alongside the creation of gender studies as an academic discipline. And now we are in a situation where we don't have a family economy. We have an individual income economy, which means most people can't raise a family without both parents working.
Okay, let me bring in Emily, who's been waiting very patiently. Emily, good to see you again. Now, you started a kind of MAGA civil war when you railed against women who want to be a trad wife. You posted a TikTok video
Yeah, that's the term I was trying to remember earlier when I was talking about this movement of women going back to traditional roles or claiming to be going back to traditional roles. The short term is trad wife. Trad wife.
Cause a lot of mayhem. Let's take a look at this.
Don't join Freedom with AI Masterclass if you're not ready for this. Your AI expertise will...
Now.
I'm sorry, I hate to call out my own party, but the young girls on the right promoting this like trad wife bullshit. I just want to make sourdough for my husband. That's great. I'm all for it. I promote traditional values. I understand. I have been working since I was very young. I don't really plan on stopping working. I suggest you find a hobby that makes you money. But you guys, guess what? Guess what, baby girl? That lifestyle working out, a man, a provider, you just get to sit at home, bake bread every day, slim to none. I would say none that's going to work out for you or quite literally anyone you know. You're actually setting yourself up for failure because it could not be easier, if that's what you're going to pursue, to be trapped by a man. Okay? Also, let's bring some other things to the table besides sourdough. Guys want to be mentally stimulated as well as physical, okay? But I'm just like, please, you guys are too young to be promoting this. And also, by the way, it's cringe. You guys are cringe, okay?
Now, Emily, are you standing proudly by that TikTok?
Thank you guys for laughing. That is supposed to be the point of a lot of my videos. I don't take things too seriously. I usually say things like this and don't think anything of it. I do want to point out in the video, I did start it by being like, look, I love stay-at-home moms. I support them. I promote conservative values. I think the issue with the video is a lot of people just took the video and then gave their own meaning. The group I was specifically bashing on was the young girls in their 20s that promote like traditional lifestyles online that we all know in the right-wing community absolutely do not live these lifestyles. And it's just a bit over the top. It's kind of more cosplay than anything. So of course I support moms that do that. I just don't support the girls pretending to do it, I guess, if that kind of makes sense.
I'm not sure it does. Andrew, does it make sense to you?
Well, I mean, she's right in a sense that there's a lot of LARPing that goes on the right with the supposed traditional movement, which she's absolutely right, isn't living the traditional lifestyle. However, it's still a counterintuitive message to put out there that, oh, you're going to be trapped by your husband and his income. It's like, good. Don't you want to be in a relationship with your husband and have access to his income? Like, what's the problem here? That would be the values you're trying to move towards, right? So like, ultimately, it's a contradicting message. I understand why you got a bunch of garbage for it. It is a good idea, I think, to point out the LARP, a good idea to point out how much faux traditionalism is on the right because it's a way for them to peddle sex, and that's exactly what they're doing. You see them in skimpy outfits doing exactly that. Totally fair. But on the other hand, you absolutely should not be putting out a message which ridicules women for wanting to be stay-at-home moms and actually live some type of lifestyle which is conducive to their children and family. That's silly.
Let's play at this stage the clip.
Yeah, I mean, also trapped is just the wrong word to use, but overall my message I stand by.
Okay, I want to play, because I think it fits in well here, the Caroline Levitt clip. This is where she's working with her baby. We'll just show the picture.
Anyhow, if you happen to be up at this hour of the day or night, depending on your time zone, and you come across the live on Facebook or YouTube, my comments are open. Feel free to drop a comment on the stream in real time.
Of her working at the White House with a baby in one hand and helping to run the country with the other. Now, when I first saw that picture, I thought, wow, that's a pretty extraordinary, powerful image of a young woman who's very young to be doing the incredibly important job she does. She does it, I think, extraordinarily well. And she's a mother, and she's feeding her son whilst doing this at the same time. Rachel, when you saw that image, it got a lot of blowback, good and bad. You know, some people loved it, some people hated it. What did you think about it?
Well, I actually tweeted about this too, because although I'm a big fan of Caroline as a person, I think she's great, she's smart, she's lovely. I don't understand this compulsion, especially in the Trump administration, but on the right in general, where we're supposed to be conservatives, where we are pushing mothers to work. Trump has been a huge proponent of hiring women, getting women back to work as soon as possible after having the baby. And I think this is a huge mistake because, number one, what are we conserving? If we're not conserving the traditional family and traditional gender roles and motherhood in the middle of a birth rate crisis, what are we conserving as conservatives? Just like lower taxes? I mean, should be a core issue for us on the right to say, no, motherhood is not a part-time gig that you do on the side. You don't, ship your baby off to daycare where they're spending 3 times as much time with a low-wage daycare worker as they are with mom while you go and do your career. There's plenty of life to live after raising kids. I think after you've done that, if you want to venture out and do a few more things, once you have the empty nest, I think that's okay. But pushing mothers to work it's one of the key things that's tearing apart the fabric of society because we're not raising our own children. We're not passing down our values to them. There. We're sending them to daycare and we're sending them to state-run schools, and that's who they're being raised.
I guess the point she's making is choosing that route, you end up having your children raised by other people, often doing a low skill job, rather than investing them with your beliefs and creating a foundation for them to go forth into the world and thrive in the future. Plus, it's costing an arm and leg if you're not a part of the wealthier percentage of the population who can afford to pay for these services. It costs people a large percentage of what they earn to have their children in daycare so that they're able to go and earn that money to pay for the daycare. So it's kind of a cyclical kind of a thing that results in the point she is making is not being able to instill your beliefs into your children as they grow.
Bye.
All right, Clementine, your response to that.
Do you work, Rachel?
No.
You don't make any money from your...
Here we go now. This is the kind of... I'm going to come up with a term for this. It's like the kind of wife trap sort of thing, or should we say the trad or conservative wife trap that's used in these kind of debates to make them seem to be a lesser person. And it's usually coming from females to females, as you observe.
Podcasting.
I make some money, but I do. I do maybe
you do some form of paid employment.
Yes. First of all, my children are grown up now. I'm 44 years old, so I had my first one at 20. They're grown up. They're moved out. Yep. But I work still very, very part-time, maybe a couple hours a week at most.
But do you have...
Because my primary responsibility is to my husband.
But you've got 5 children, right? Is that correct? And they're all grown up and all moved out, or you've still got some young children?
The youngest one... The youngest
ones
are
have a couple
teenagers.
at home. And by the way, you're just making an argument from hypocrisy.
So can I just ask you? Can I just ask you? Do you find, even with the small amount of part-time work that you do, which you do get paid for, do you find satisfaction from that? Do you get satisfaction from that work?
It's not the money because
see what I think she's getting at. She's gonna come with the narrative of it's necessary for a woman to gain satisfaction by doing something outside of raising her children, i.e. working for an employer or doing some kind of out of the house work to make money, and weighing this up against whether she gets a sufficient form of satisfaction or amount of satisfaction staying at home and raising the children. I think this is the angle aimed at in this type of
Andrew makes
an argument.
Far more than I make. I make a very, very tiny amount of money off of, my book and a couple of appearances here and there. Might sell a few books. It's practically nothing. If I was doing it for the money, it'd be a waste of even the couple of hours. But what I would say to that is, we're not against women doing other things. So if you look at the Bible and the Proverbs 31 woman, she does a lot of things. She's out buying land. She's making decisions. She's doing all kinds of things. The difference is that she's doing them under the purview of the guidance and leadership of her husband and for her family, not for a corporation, not for her own glory, not for her own ambition.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and what are you doing?
What's going on here?
I'm trying to shoot an ad.
Promptly, goodbye.
A lot of that depends
that's what I'm
on
trying
whether
to
or not
do.
you have faith in the Bible, which obviously not everyone does. But the reason I asked you those questions wasn't because I was trying to set you up or anything like that. It doesn't surprise me that you would get some satisfaction. To me, the point of the question wasn't about the money. It's about the work. It's about the passion that you put into it. And the reason I asked was because a multi-year study done by Adrienne Freck and Sarah Damaske, found that the mental health of women who worked full-time after the birth of their first child was significantly higher than those who didn't have paid work at all. So I think that taking into account the fact that for a lot of women, and this is also what Betty Friedan found when she wrote The Feminine Mystique, and Stephanie Coontz backed this up as well in her book, The Way We Never Were, which is a history of a modern
But are you
American
married,
family.
Clementine? I've no idea about your situation, but are you married? Do you have kids? What's your deal?
I've got a kid. I'm not married.
Okay, but you have a...
I'm a single mother.
Okay.
And I have a very excellent relationship with my son's father. We co-parent together very well, but we're not married. We don't live together. I certainly have found since having a child, I mean, I've always worked anyway, but I've been working since I was 13 years old, but I've always found that work for me is very satisfying. And this, what I'm saying is that these are the findings of multiple historians, anthropologists, scientists, that
these are the findings of diehard feminists who are only investigating this from a feminist point of view. They're already sold on the ideology, and what they do is they cherry pick data.
She's a world-renowned historian. She's not specifically a feminist. She's a world-renowned historian, and these were her findings as well. So you cannot deny the reality. If when you look at the facts of it, you cannot deny the reality.
Anything else? We're not saying women can never leave the house. We're not saying you can't have other things in your life that you find fulfilling.
You're suggesting that the primary role for a woman, and that, you know, in your faith, I'm not going to discredit that, but your faith in God says that this is what you believe God says that you should be doing, but that the primary role for a woman is that she should be staying at home, that she should be devoted to her husband, she should be devoted to her children. The facts do not back that up. The facts of familial satisfaction don't back that up.
Well, hang on. Okay, let me jump in. Hang on.
Yes, they do.
Hang on. Sorry, Clementine. I think you've chosen the wrong moment to say that. You've clearly got a woman here on the panel where the facts completely back that up. She's had a lot of kids. She's very happily married.
She loves that there would be exceptions to the rule, but statistically speaking,
you've just literally got one sitting there in front of you.
That's completely untrue, though. For her to say that this one study, that this one survey is going to tell us something. First of all, we have two.
It was a multi-year study.
Ma'am, if I
let me ask you, Clementine. Let me ask Clementine. When you were you married or not? I can't remember what you said. Were you married?
No, I've never been married.
Okay, but when you were with your partner before you broke up, who did the household chores and stuff like that? I mean, how did you delineate that as a feminist?
It was a struggle because even in lots of supposedly egalitarian households, you know, again, the data backs up that even women who make more money than their partners or their spouses tend to do more unpaid domestic labor. This is the
who did most of the domestic chores
in my house?
Yeah,
me.
Yeah, you did.
Me.
Okay, and Rachel, who does most of them in yours?
That's the reality for.
Well, hang on.
For most
Rachel,
women,
who does the domestic stuff in your house, Rachel?
I do absolutely all of it, and the thing I want to say to
so you're very
Clementine
similar. I mean, it seems to me you're both.
I care far less about women's fulfillment in careers than I care about children and how they're being raised, and I want her to justify to me why we should be paying low-wage daycare workers to raise our children rather than doing it ourselves. How does it make sense to take your duty of motherhood and simply put it on a different random woman? How does that system make sense? Why should we tell women to do that?
If you would like to stay at home and raise your children,
you're not answering
totally
fine.
You're not answering the question.
My question is, how is it good for children
it's a question
for
of
them
choice.
to be raised by
it's a question of choice.
No, it's
it's actually not worse.
No.
It's not worse for children to be raised by working mothers. That's also the facts back that up. There is no study that suggests that women who work
Listen, lady,
raise children who are less happy. That is not true.
There are no facts.
That's how these arguments become quite interesting when one party would just say, well, the facts back this up, and then move on along in the argument, not presenting the said facts that they say back up their argument and comparing it against some kind of opposition the statistics. They just so these studies say that I'm right, and also then move along swiftly on
planet Earth that back up that single mother households have better outcomes. That's one. Two, that outsourcing your hang on, let me finish. Lady, if you outsource the raising of your children, you're already making yourself a single mother, just so you know. Here's what's going on. Just so that you understand.
Are you a single father because your wife raises your children for you?
Lady.
Excuse me, don't call me lady.
Can you let me finish? Can anybody finish a point? Can anybody finish a point? Or
I don't know. Do you have a point?
Are only you allowed to? I'm trying to make one. So
you don't seem to be making a point.
See, that's the whole feminism thing. Triggered. You cough. Excuse me. Don't cough in that masculine, the mansplainish type. You can't do right for wrong. It's just so, boss, female debater. I'm gonna get you. There's no room for tempered emotions and balanced logical discussion some of the times.
Andrew,
if you outsource your children's raising to strangers, answer Rachel's question and tell her how that makes more sense than having the child raised by their own biological mother. Actually answer.
Please.
Well, in my case, it makes more sense because I need to make money to pay my bills to raise my child.
It's
but in many other families, it makes...
What if you depended on your husband's income?
Do you see the problem of how we ended up here?
Now it's my turn to finish. But actually...
And therein lies the root of the problem.
Again, if you knew what you were talking about, if you actually read anything about the data on these things rather than just reaching into your gut for a feeling that feels true to you.
Let's go over the data. Show me the data that shows that if you outsource childcare, it's better.
Let me bring Emily in, because Emily's been, hang on.
No statistical data to support the fact that children raised by mothers who work are less happy than children raised by mothers who stay at home.
Yes, there is. There's tons of data.
I would never try and stop Rachel.
There's so much overwhelming data.
That's her choice.
Hey, listen,
to do that.
There is so much overwhelming data.
Because that's her choice.
All right, let me bring Emily in. Let me bring Emily in.
Piers knows that.
Emily was trying to say something.
You don't want your daughters and your nieces being forced to stay at home to raise families.
I don't want my kids to be forced to do anything. No, Emily, you wanted to say
Debate's
something.
moving along.
When we touch here, maybe just try this, ladies and gentlemen. That's nice. Yeah, that's good. So just do that because.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'm not going to argue data with either of you guys. I'm sure you know more than me, but I can say that my father is my hero and the most important person in my life. And if I didn't have him and he wasn't in the household, I don't know where I would be today. And my girlfriends who were raised without fathers in the household, I do see them struggle in different ways when it comes to dating and all these different things. And it's funny because it's like they do make a point. Like if there was a father in the household supporting you, I think a lot of these issues wouldn't be what they are. So I think there's points to both of these things.
Okay, let me ask Andrew. Andrew.
But supporting in what way?
Is your name Andrew? Anyway, go ahead, Piers.
Yeah, well, Andrew, I was going to ask Andrew, when Rachel said that she does all domestic chores, is there anything you do? I mean, you put the bins out? Do you the trash out? I mean, what do you do anything?
What do you do for the household? As a man.
That's what I got a wife for.
Maybe a little yard work.
But not only that.
If something breaks, there's yard work. That's about it.
Yeah, cars need repair, something like that. But I'm not going to do household chores. That's what I got married for. I don't want to do household chores. Not only that, on top of that, let's just point a couple things out. She's absolutely wrong. Here's what the stats actually say. That if a child is raised in a two-parent household, they're going to have way better outcomes. And if they have a present mother who's more present with them, they're going to have way better outcomes. Every single data point backs this up. The outsourcing of children to public school, especially for 8 hours a
But
day,
you're
is
assuming,
absurd.
you're
Stop,
assuming
stop.
that a
Let me
present
finish the
mother,
point.
You're
Let
assuming
me
that a
finish the
present mother,
point, and then
you're
you can
assuming that a
respond.
present
Let
mother
the
Let
man
me finish the
conclude,
point.
a mother who
I've got to
works.
say,
And then you can
Clementine, as someone who
Why is
doesn't
a
like
mother
being
who works
interrupted,
not a
you
present
Why
interrupt
is
a
it that you
lot.
won't let me finish the point?
I got a
Let me
text
finish the
message from your
point.
producer, Piers, telling me to
Let
interrupt
him
if I disagreed
land.
with anyone.
Yeah,
So
but
take it
can
up
you-
with
Okay,
them.
no, but I
Can
think
you
that
at least let me finish the
what's
point?
changed since that text message is you've made a point of objecting to being interrupted. So I don't think you can do that.
And yet I keep
and
being
then keep
interrupted,
interrupting.
Piers, so that's just the state of play
why don't
right
you
now.
practice what you
I keep
preach
being
and
interrupted.
don't interrupt Andrew when he's trying to finish his point?
Yeah, so look, I've just finished the point.
Would he make a point? He hasn't made one yet.
Yeah, I just did. I made multiple points. All the data points
Well,
are
he's made
against
the
you on
point
this.
that he doesn't respect his
You're
wife
still not,
because he doesn't.
lady.
He
You still
married a
can't
wife
stop
because
talking.
She's just like a hair trigger. It's like any slight opportunity. It's like bash, 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 push, bash, push. She's just ready to go, whether there's a point to it or not. But Andrew is a skilled debater, calm and tempered enough to steer and navigate his way through this type of oppositionary panel guest.
he didn't want to do
You
anything
can't
for
stop
himself.
talking, lady. This is why it should say the 19th under that shirt. You cannot even be quiet long enough to hear a counterpoint. Here's the counterpoints. The data you're citing, you don't have any when it comes to outcomes for children. When it comes to outsourcing, they're raising.
Incorrect.
None.
Incorrect.
No. Show me any that shows that you sending your
So
kids outsourcing.
which data are you
Would
citing?
you stop so that I can finish the question?
No, tell me.
I'm trying to at least
cite the
finish the
data.
question. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. One more time. All data points to the fact that if you outsource the
incorrect.
raising of your children,
You can't
especially
just
when they're
stand there
young,
and say all data. You actually have to cite it.
Cite any data
all
that
data
shows.
does not say that.
Cite
panel
any
members.
data ever that shows that you outsourcing the care of your child is good for the child. Any. Yeah, that's
Stephanie
right.
Coontz.
Nothing. You got Stephanie Coontz doesn't say that. You're
Can it
lying
get-
through
Do
your
you
teeth.
even know who Stephanie Coontz is?
Yes, you mean the
Nobody
feminist
knows
writer?
who Stephanie Coontz is.
The feminist
I have
writer,
the data.
Stephanie
You
Coontz?
don't. You see. You clearly don't even know what you're talking about.
I don't.
I can tell you.
You're not even interested. You're not even interested enough in the topic.
I'm sorry.
You're not even
I'm sorry.
interested enough to
I'm
respect
sorry.
the
Who's
topic
Stephanie
enough.
Coontz? Let's make sure
Is
we
it
got it right.
you
Who's Stephanie Coontz?
Stephanie Coontz is an historian, a
historian.
world-renowned historian into marriage and the structure
And
of the
isn't a
American
feminist,
family.
right? Isn't a feminist? I just want to make sure we're clear.
I have no idea if she's a feminist or not. I know that she's an
Well,
historian.
then why would you try to make a
But she knows who the woman
refutation
is.
about what I'm saying? Clearly you don't know enough about the topic. Right? It's silly.
I
Yeah,
have the
indeed.
data.
I'm only allowed to.
I
I'm
have
only
some
allowed to
data for
reference
her if she
feminists.
wants it.
I'm not allowed to reference historians. Is that we're only? So
If
I'm
you
only
have
allowed
a
to
historian who's-
reference feminists.
No, she's telling him he doesn't know enough about the subject and the person being quoted from, and then he asks her to, kind of highlight what she knows about the woman, and she can't come back with any kind of useful information. So, pot calling the kettle.
Also
You're
a feminist.
clearly only allowed to reference
If you have a historian who's
podcasters.
also a feminist, they're biased, right? That's
Let
gonna
me
be a
ask you,
biased
Clementine.
list.
Clementine, let me
Why
ask
are
you.
you, why are you
Clementine,
so obsessed with whether or not she's a feminist or
Clementine,
not?
let me ask you a question.
She's a
Because it would
historian.
promote bias.
Because it would be
bias.
biased.
Let me try and ask a question here. Clementine, do you hate men?
No, of course I don't hate men. What
I mean,
an absurd, reductive question.
Well,
why
why did you
why
tweet-
would you think that that
Well,
was
hang
an
on, 'cause I'm
interesting
about to
line
follow
of
up.
questioning
They hate you.
for
But why
They
in
hate
2020 did you tweet the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough?
I tweeted that in 2020 as a misguided
Where's the
tweet,
humanity?
but it was actually much of a part of a longer
Misguided tweet.
thread.
Coronavirus
And
isn't killing
yes,
men
and I
fast
apologise
enough.
for it,
You say you
Piers.
don't hate
I
men.
apologize for it, Piers.
You
I
thought a
apologise
deadly
for it at the
pandemic
time.
virus wasn't killing men fast enough.
Apologize to men again. Do it again. You haven't apologized.
I was working in ICU hospital ward through both of those lockdowns, and I just can't imagine a person walking through those wards looking at all of those innocent victims of this virus and to be thinking that the male ones in the beds are not being unalived fast enough by the virus, viral infection. What type of person thinks like that?
To me for saying that you want me to die from the coronavirus.
Well,
Now
I would
say
have to
you're sorry.
consider you a man to apologize you for that,
Say you're
Andrew.
sorry. Say you don't even know what a woman is. How
Why
you
would I
a man is?
You know what
Now
else?
apologize.
I would like a man. Andrew, I would
say
like
you're
for her
sorry.
to apologize to me because I do not.
You see, she's talking about Rachel's husband there being on the male side. So I think Rachel at least is due an apology.
Appreciate her saying that my own husband does not respect me. Of course he respects me. He respects me as a mother and as a wife. He treats me like gold. Who the hell are you to tell me if he respects me or not?
You wouldn't have to get paid for this if you had a husband.
I didn't say that he. Where did I even
You did.
mention?
You said he clearly doesn't respect his wife.
You did say that. I heard you say it.
You mean the piece of shit that you're married to? Yeah, he clearly doesn't respect you.
Oh, there we go.
He's a piece of shit now. You see, this is when they're on the losing role, they just have to lower the tone and just insults, character assassinations, and all kinds of silliness, rather than having a balanced, logical, common sense, factual debate.
Jokes about how he married you. He doesn't
He's
do
not
shit
the
around
piece
the
of
house
shit
because
in
that's
this
why you married a
panel.
wife.
That would be you,
That's
man.
why you got a
You're
wife.
the one.
Yeah.
Listen, let's get back to the topic here. You're the one who is
That would be
insisting
nice.
that there's no data
the
proving
list of
that
topics
it's
that we
shut
would say.
up.
I
Shut
would
your mouth.
genuinely.
Nobody
Okay, let me
wanted to
hang
say
on.
that.
Time out. I would genuinely like to know. You said it was misguided to say the coronavirus wasn't killing men fast enough. Why
it was
would
a
you?
terrible thing to say.
So why did you?
Terrible thing to say.
No,
Piers.
I understand.
I
it's
already said that the time.
Don't worry.
Was a
Let me
terrible
finish
thing
my
to say.
question. I do understand it's a terrible thing to say. My question, my bemusement. Why would you say that?
The only thing keeping you from the goals that you have right now is your brain. It's not your skill set. It's not the way you live. It's not the color of your.
Shocking.
Because I was really frustrated with the articles that I was reading about how the pandemic was.
Now, I'll confess and admit, we all say regrettable things, particularly in comments, tweets, texts, all of those circumstances. She doesn't want to double down on this one. Trust me.
It was derailing women's workplace. It was derailing women's economic trajectories. And there was a specific article that I had read about a woman who had founded her own company. She was the CEO of it. Her husband had taken a sabbatical prior to the pandemic. And within 2 days of childcare closing down, he said, I can't take care of the 4-year-old. And she quit her job to go home and look after the kid.
What's that got to do with you wanting more men to be killed?
So that's one
Piers, if you're going to ask me the question, then let me finish
No,
it.
you know what, Clementine?
You
know what, Clementine? When you tweet, literally, coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. I think I'm entitled to push you a little bit more than it was a bit misguided. You're literally calling for the mass culling of men while simultaneously pretending you don't hate men.
Come on, you know that. Don't be disingenuous. You know that that's not what I was calling for. You
did
know
he
that
misinterpret
it was
the tweet of kill all men?
Coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough.
You know that it was a glib tweet, and you know that I also apologized for it shortly after that. You know that I was sincere in my apology.
You didn't apologize
so
to me.
Why you're dragging it out 5 years later?
Can you apologize to Andrew, please?
Well, you apologized to me for saying you wanted me to die.
I would not apologize to you if I did something to you, let alone for doing nothing to you.
Even if you did something to me, you wouldn't apologize.
Was that?
Well, it goes a little something like this. Or should have.
The only time, Clementine. Hang on. I've got a follow-up. I have a follow-up. Clementine, was that the only time you've tweeted that you want all men to be killed?
Piers, why don't you just say what you want to say?
No, I'm just asking you a question. Have you tweeted
no,
previously?
I have tweeted prior to that.
Kill all men.
As a joke.
As a joke, right?
I have.
As a joke.
So you quite regularly think it's funny to say that men should be killed?
No, I don't quite regularly. There's two examples that you can think of.
Yeah, you don't hate men, but you did tweet kill all men, and then you tweeted the coronavirus isn't killing men fast enough. I put it to you.
Yeah, oh, hang on. I put
it to you. You probably do hate men if you want us all dead.
Into the sun. I've also said that men should be fired into the sun. Tell me, at what point do these very clearly glib, and yes, I have apologized for them, very clearly glib tweets from a time as well where Twitter was such a toxic. I don't tweet anymore. It's a bad place for everybody.
Okay. Doesn't tweet anymore.
At what point do those things be
Eternity
accepted?
later. One eternity later. One eternity.
Misguided, regrettable, deeply apologetic for them now. Remarks that you would never say again.
You don't sound very apologetic.
I think you should just admit that you don't like men. I think it's the problem comes when you keep
I don't
denying.
like you very much, Piers.
I don't care if you like me or not. You spray gun me in public. I couldn't give a damn.
Why do I have to sit here and admit to you that I don't like men? What do you hope?
I just asked you if you do or not. You said you don't hate men.
I said that I did.
You spend all your time wanting us to be dead.
Me.
Hang on, she loves men. You just gotta shoot him into the sun. That's all.
You don't like me. You think Andrew's a piece of shit. So that's every single man involved in this debate you hate.
Is absurd.
Every man in this debate, Clementine, you've said you hate.
Relationships with men, you shouldn't be giving advice on it.
Emily, what was that?
I hate every man in this
debate. If you live a life where you've been unsuccessful in relationships, whether it's friendship, love, marriage, whatever it is, I think you're probably the last person in the position to be giving advice what women should do with men. I mean, I don't feel any animosity towards men, even when it comes to him
successful in friendships and relationships. That's a very
are you a single mom?
That's a very odd. Well, being a single mother doesn't mean that I'm unsuccessful in relationships. I already said before that I have a very beautiful co-parenting relationship with my son's father. He lives in the same apartment building as us. We're deeply close friends.
That's great,
so
but it didn't work out.
I don't understand why you think that is. I'm not bitter towards men at all. I'm annoyed at the expectation that some men on this panel have, that women should do everything for them. I'm certainly angry at the fact that in the UK,
do you think Andrew does everything?
I mean, I do everything I can for my boyfriend. I'm
angry that in the UK, a woman is killed every 3 days by a man. I'm angry that in America, 3 women are killed every day by a man.
How many men are killed every day by men?
That's kind of a different
How many men are killed every day by men?
1 woman is killed every 10 minutes. By an
how many
babies do you women kill?
I'm angry about. And I'm angry
how many babies do you guys kill?
This is what they
1
do.
in 3 girls over the age of 15 will experience sexual violence in her lifetime.
No,
I'm very
that's
angry
another
about
fake
that.
statistic,
I'm
and I would
angry
love
about
to
rape
tear
and
this
sexual
apart.
assault. I'm angry about the fact that the most dangerous person to a woman is a man that she knows. I'm angry about all of these things. Yes, but that doesn't.
She spent about a minute or two going through a list of all the things she hates about men, and she ain't done yet.
Doesn't mean that I hate men. That doesn't mean that I don't.
You just want to shoot them into the sun.
And I have the data to prove it.
For men's greatness with women and with children.
You want to shoot men into the sun, you want them killed by coronavirus, and you want all of us dead, and you hate both the men on the panel. Other than that, you love men.
You love them. They're great.
Well,
even though they're out there being a bunch of evil
rapists. Which is that I hate the men on this panel.
My thing is, like, can't you admit that you at least like men enough that they gave you a beautiful child you're super grateful of? I mean, that's a positive.
This is honestly one of the most absurd conversations I've ever had in my life. I've just sat here and explained that I don't hate men.
Yeah.
I've just sat here and explained that I have a wonderful relationship with my son's father. I've just sat here and said that I've apologized for these things that I've said in the past. We've all said terrible things. Piers, you've said terrible.
And I just want to add, for those of you who still watching, it's a fairly long debate, and for those of you who hung in there, just like to give you a quick thanks, and it's very interesting debate, I would say, as these debates go.
Terrible things on Twitter. We've all said terrible things and apologized for
Name one. Hang on. What have I said? What have I said? Name one.
Oh, Piers, do you want me to look them up right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, let me just give me a second.
Tell me a terrible thing I said on Twitter.
Piers Morgan.
While she's looking, can I refute her fake statistics that she just gave? Because I hear feminists repeat this all the time.
Well, there we go. I'll look at that.
Give me a terrible opinion.
If you had 2 cars or more on finance between 2015 and 2021, you
can't remember.
Rachel, I thought you were talking while I'm just scrolling through the endless
No, we can all wait, Clementine. The clock is ticking, though. I mean, find one terrible thing that I've tweeted.
Crickets.
I think that All Lives Matter was pretty bad.
You think all lives matter? It's a bit better than men should be dying faster, isn't it?
All lives matter.
Let's compare all lives matter against more men should die faster.
All lives matter as a rejection of Black Lives Matter.
I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. I didn't reject it. I didn't reject Black Lives Matter.
Hate him as a racist.
I didn't reject Black Lives Matter. Don't lie.
No, but you did.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. You see, this is the trouble. You say that I've said terrible things. When you try and find them, you don't have any.
I'm looking at it right here, Piers. All lives matter.
He didn't say white lives matter. He said all lives matter, which is true. And any decent.
Do you not think all lives matter, Clementine?
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Clementine, do all lives matter?
Yeah, Clementine.
I think that all lives deserve respect.
Do they matter?
I think that in the context...
Do all lives matter, Clementine?
You do know what? All lives do matter. And
thank you. Thank you.
What's controversial?
All
that
lives
the
are not
one
given the
terrible
same respect,
thing you
though.
found
All
I've ever
lives are not
said,
given the
you
same
completely...
respect.
She's painted herself into being in a tricky position. So, but, you know, just as, you know, a human response, I do give her a little bit of satin on that score.
I agree with. So on that delightful note, where you agree with the one terrible thing that I've ever apparently said, we will leave this compelling debate. Thank you all very much indeed. I've got to say, Rachel, I think, Rachel, it's lovely to see a very happily married couple who genuinely like each other. So thank you for coming on Uncensored. And in your case, Clementine, I hope you find a man like Andrew to take care of you. Thank you all very much.
Oh yeah.
Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Now I'll say that was very interesting. I don't always watch the Piers Morgan uncensored debates from top to tail. Normally there's certain sections that really are eventful and bring forth, you know, a lot of useful information. On this occasion, I think from the beginning to the end, this was one worth paying attention to, and it was particularly interesting to see and hear Andrew Wilson and Rachel on the same panel, how they conducted themselves in a fairly respectful way, and how the whole panel kind of gave each other as much room as they could to voice their opinions. I think the feminists kind of like sort of tried to eat up a lot of the oxygen. Piers often lets it run when it gets heated like that, because I suppose you get a lot of the best content, and that's what the show is about. It's entertainment as much as it is informative. So all in all, I'll just say it's a good show. Kept me up tonight or this morning, depending on your time zone. For those of you on Facebook, thank you for hanging in there. Those of you on YouTube, thank you for hanging in there. And anywhere where you see this show posted, Corner Speak, myself, Owen Uradier, going to be back here again at some point in the future. Till then, be good, be safe, and if you can, be creative. For now, I have to say, I'm out.